The seamstress was pinning my hem when my phone buzzed on the velvet chair. I glanced at the screen and saw my mother's name. The message loaded slowly, each word appearing like a small cut. I will not attend a warehouse wedding with thrift store flowers. Another buzz followed immediately. If you insist on embarrassing me, consider me absent. The pins bit into my ribs as I stood frozen. My throat burned, but I didn't cry. I'd learned years ago that tears only gave Marina more ammunition. Instead, I typed one word back with steady fingers. Understood. The seamstress looked up, concern softening her face. Everything okay, honey? Fine, I said. Can we pause for a minute? I stepped into the hallway, my half-pin dress rustling around my legs. My hands trembled as I opened my email app and found the contract I'd been staring at for 3 weeks. The Glasshouse Conservatory venue agreement sat in my drafts, waiting for final confirmation. I'd been too scared to commit, too worried about the cost, too uncertain about whether I deserved something so beautiful. Not anymore. I scrolled to the bottom and pressed confirm. The response came instantly. Booking confirmed. Welcome to the Glasshouse family. I leaned against the hallway wall and finally let myself breathe. My name is Naomi Hale. I'm 28 years old, and I teach music at Roosevelt Elementary School. My students call me Miss N and hand me crumpled paper hearts they make during recess. They sing off-key and don't care. They're the reason I wake up every morning and remember that love doesn't have to hurt. My fiancé is Jude Parker. He's a carpenter with calloused hands and a backbone made of quiet steel. He builds kitchen cabinets for families in our neighborhood and fixes stuck windows for elderly women who pay him in cookies. He proposed to me on a Tuesday evening in our tiny apartment, no ring yet, just a question and a promise that we'd figure everything out together. My mother is Marina Hale, collector of social connections and grudges. She measures love in RSVPs and crystal stemware. She spent my entire life teaching me that appearances matter more than truth, that status matters more than substance, that being seen matters more than being real. Here's what I learned early: Marina loves being mother of the bride more than being mother. The title matters. The performance matters. The daughter herself is just a prop in someone else's production. I'd been trying to escape that stage my whole life. Back in the fitting room, I heard the seamstress whisper to her assistant. Some mothers forget the wedding isn't about them. The words floated through the curtain, soft but clear. Shame hit me first, hot and familiar. Then something else followed, something that felt almost like relief. I wasn't crazy. Other people saw it too. The assistant knocked gently before entering to adjust my shoulders. As she worked, she slipped me a tissue with something written on it. I unfolded the paper in my palm. The handwriting was small and careful. You don't need her permission. I folded the note back up and tucked it into my purse like a talisman. After the fitting ended, I rode the subway home with those words repeating in my head. The train rattled through dark tunnels while I stared at my reflection in the window and realized something important. I'd been asking for permission my entire life. Permission to choose my own major. Permission to date someone my mother didn't approve of. Permission to teach music instead of law. Permission to have a simple wedding instead of a society spectacle. I was done asking. The plan I'd been forming for weeks finally crystallized into something solid and real. I had the venue now. The next steps would require courage, but I'd been training for this moment since childhood. 2 months earlier, my mother had summoned me to brunch at her favorite restaurant. I arrived to find her already seated with her friend Beatrice, a woman who wore her wealth like armor. Marina clinked her spoon against her water glass to get attention, even though only 3 of us sat at the table. We've outgrown your little ideas, she announced, sliding a glossy brochure across the white tablecloth. You'll move the ceremony to the Hamilton Club, or I'm not coming. The Hamilton Club. Where Marina had been trying to gain membership for 5 years. Where her friends held their daughters' weddings. Where being seen mattered more than being happy. That's not in our budget, I said quietly. Budgets are a mindset problem, Naomi. You think small, so you stay small. She produced a pre-printed guest list from her purse. 40 names filled the page, most of them people I'd never met. Business associates. Country club acquaintances. Women from her book club who didn't read books. These are the people who matter, Marina said. Family, friends. Connections. The foundation of a proper celebration. I picked up the list and studied it. My best friend from college wasn't on it. My choir director wasn't on it. Jude's grandmother wasn't on it. I slid the paper back across the table without a word. The small cruelties started immediately after that brunch. Marina removed Jude from the family group chat about the rehearsal dinner. When I added him back, she replied within seconds. He'll feel out of place, darling. That crowd is, well, you understand. I understood perfectly. Jude didn't have the right background, the right credentials, the right last name. He worked with his hands instead of managing portfolios. He drove a 10-year-old truck instead of leasing a luxury sedan. He was kind instead of impressive. In Marina's world, those were unforgivable flaws. I have thick skin, Jude said when I showed him the message. Don't let her get to you. But that night I cried into his t-shirt anyway, soaking the fabric with tears I'd been holding back for weeks. I won't let you stand alone at your own wedding, I whispered. I promise. He held me tighter. I'm not alone. I have you. That was the difference between Jude and everyone my mother wanted me to marry. He didn't need me to complete him or elevate him. He simply wanted to build a life beside me, measuring success in morning coffee and shared laughter instead of social climbing and strategic networking. Marina would never understand that kind of love. She'd spent 40 years perfecting the art of transaction, and genuine affection looked like weakness to her. A week later, I stopped by Marina's house to drop off invitation mock-ups. I let myself in with the key I'd had since high school and heard her voice coming from the study. She was on speakerphone, her tone sharp and confident. If I hold out long enough, she'll cave. She always does. We'll fix the narrative. I stood in the hallway, my back pressed against wallpaper printed with tiny blue flowers. The same wallpaper that had been there when I was 8 years old, standing in this exact spot, listening to Marina tell someone on the phone that I wasn't naturally talented at piano but we could manage the optics. 20 years later, nothing had changed. Cave. Fix. Perform. Those were the verbs of my childhood. Bend yourself into acceptable shapes. Correct anything authentic. Pretend everything is perfect. I set the invitation mock-ups on the console table without announcing my presence and walked back out the front door. My hands shook as I drove home, but underneath the trembling was something harder and clearer than anger. Determination. Marina had been directing my life like a stage production since birth. Every choice, every relationship, every achievement had been filtered through her lens of social acceptability. She'd cut me off financially at 19 when I refused to major in business. She'd reeled me back in 5 years later with help that came with strings attached like puppet lines. Those strings were about to snap. Our wedding planner, Simone, called me during my lunch break at school. Her voice was tight with barely controlled frustration. Someone requested the guest spreadsheet claiming to be you. They've been making changes. My stomach dropped. Who? The email came from Marina Hale. She sent regrets accepted notices to 3 of your friends and added 8 of her acquaintances in their place. I closed my classroom door and sat down hard on my desk chair. Can you reverse the changes? Already done. But Naomi, you need to password protect everything. I need to be professional here, but this is not normal mother of the bride behavior. I thanked her and locked down every shared document. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Marina. Don't be petty. This is how it's done. Trust me. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed my response. Not anymore. Her reply was immediate. You're being childish. I'm trying to help you avoid disaster. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Jude and told him everything. His silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Jude? You there? I'm here. I'm just thinking about how strong you are. His voice was soft. Most people would have caved by now. You're still standing. That weekend, Jude and I toured a budget-friendly warehouse venue on the west side. The space had exposed brick walls, concrete floors, and industrial windows that let in beautiful natural light. The owner had strong cafe lights across the ceiling, creating a warm glow that softened the raw edges. We could make this work, Jude said, studying the layout. I could build some wooden arch pieces, maybe some benches. The coordinator, an older woman named Sylvia with gentle eyes, showed us the courtyard where we could hold the ceremony. Weeds pushed through cracks in the pavement, but wildflowers bloomed in the corners, stubborn and lovely. Sometimes enough is holy, Sylvia said, noticing my uncertain expression. A fancy venue doesn't make a marriage. The promises do. I almost cried right there. This place was honest and imperfect and real. Everything my mother would hate. Everything I thought I wanted. I booked it that afternoon, signing a contract that included a cancellation clause. The deposit was small enough that we wouldn't lose much if things changed. I tucked the cancellation policy into my purse like a wild card I might need later. Walking to the car, Jude squeezed my hand. You okay? You seemed far away. I'm okay, I said. Just thinking about how Marina will react when she sees this place. He stopped walking. Do you care? I thought about it honestly. Not as much as I used to. Monday morning, I was setting up chairs in the music room when Mrs. Patterson appeared in the doorway. She was the grandmother of one of my former students, a quiet girl named Keisha who'd discovered her voice in my 7th grade choir 3 years ago. Miss Hale, do you have a moment? She handed me a cream-colored envelope, her weathered hands shaking slightly. This is from some of the families. For your wedding day. From the kids you helped find their music. Inside were small checks, handwritten notes, and a folded list of names. 20 families had contributed whatever they could spare. The amounts ranged from $10 to $100, but each one came with words that made my throat tight. You stayed after concert night to walk my daughter home in the rain. You bought my son new reeds when we couldn't afford them. You taught my granddaughter that her voice mattered. I sat down at the piano bench and pressed my hands flat against my thighs to stop them from shaking. These people had nothing to gain from helping me. They just loved me because I'd loved their children. That was family. Not blood. Not obligation. Just showing up. Thank you, I whispered to Mrs. Patterson. This means everything. During afternoon pickup, another parent named Xavier mentioned something that made my pulse quicken. Hey, Miss Hale, random question. Do you know anything about the Glasshouse Conservatory? My mother had been obsessed with the Glasshouse for years. It was the most prestigious venue in the city, a stunning glass structure filled with rare plants and natural light. Marina had tried repeatedly to get invited to events there. She'd been rejected every time. The conservatory didn't care about money alone. They cared about community contribution. I know of it, I said carefully. Why do you ask? My sister works in their events office. They just opened a new terrace, but bookings are impossible unless you're a major donor. Although, he paused, I think they reserve a few community dates each year for city educators and nonprofit workers. Might be worth asking. After Xavier left, I stood in the empty hallway and felt the universe tilt slightly on its axis. I pulled out my phone and found the conservatory's website. Under Community Access Program, I found exactly what Xavier had described. Educators who could demonstrate service to underserved students could apply for a limited number of subsidized bookings. I filled out the application that night at my kitchen table while Jude cooked dinner. My hands shook as I attached photos from concerts, permission slips from field trips, and a video of my students performing a Motown medley at the district showcase. I hit submit before I could second-guess myself. The response came 3 days later, faster than I'd expected. The coordinator's name was Amira, and her email was brief and professional. "We've reviewed your application. You're currently on the wait list, but a late opening slot has become available on your wedding date. The community rate fee is due within 72 hours to hold the booking. Details attached." I opened the attachment and felt my stomach drop. Even with the subsidized rate, the fee was $1,500 more than our current budget. We'd been saving for months, cutting expenses everywhere we could, but we were tapped out. I thought about asking Marina for help. The thought lasted exactly 3 seconds before I heard her voice in my head. "See? I told you to do it properly from the start. Now you need me." No. I'd rather elope than give her that satisfaction. I started making a list. My grandmother's violin was worth something. I could pick up extra private lesson students in the evenings. Jude could take the staircase renovation project he'd been avoiding because the client was difficult. We'd make it work somehow. We always did. That night, I told Jude about the glasshouse opportunity. He listened quietly, then pulled out his phone and started texting. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Calling in some favors." "That renovation project?" "I'm taking it. And I'm asking for payment up front." For 2 weeks, we worked like we'd never worked before. I sold my grandmother's violin to a music shop, my heart breaking as I watched them carry it away. I picked up 4 new private students, teaching lessons until 7 o'clock every night. Jude worked the brutal staircase renovation, coming home with sawdust in his hair and exhaustion in his eyes. We got close. Within $300 of what we needed. But the deadline was approaching, and we were out of options. I sat at my kitchen table at midnight, staring at the number on the screen and trying not to cry. We'd done everything we could. It wasn't enough. "Maybe the warehouse venue is fine," Jude said softly. "Maybe we don't need the glass house." "It's not about needing it," I said. "It's about, I don't know. Proving something to myself. That I can have something beautiful that my mother couldn't control or take away." He pulled me close. "You already have that. You have us." He was right, but that didn't stop the disappointment from sitting heavy in my chest. The next morning, I found another envelope in my school mailbox. No return address. Inside was a cashier's check and a note written in shaky handwriting. For the teacher who stayed after concert night to walk my daughter home in the rain. "You kept her safe. Let us help keep your dreams safe too." The amount was exactly $300. Down to the penny. I sat on the music room floor between the stands and sobbed into my cardigan. With the full payment secured, I called Amira and confirmed the glasshouse booking. My voice shook as I gave her my credit card information, half expecting something to go wrong at the last minute. "You're all set," she said warmly. "Welcome to the glasshouse family, Naomi. We're honored to host your celebration." After hanging up, I sat very still in my classroom and let the reality sink in. I'd done it. Without Marina's money or permission or interference. Jude and I had built this together, with help from people who loved us without conditions. Now came the hard part. Setting boundaries. I pulled out a fresh piece of notebook paper and started writing. The letter took me 3 hours and 7 drafts before I got it right. Clear but kind. Firm but not cruel. "Dear Marina, you are invited to my wedding as my mother, not as my producer. If you choose to attend, these are the conditions: no speeches without prior approval. No changes to the guest list. No interference with vendors. And an apology to Jude for calling him an embarrassment at Easter dinner. This apology should be simple, sincere, and public. Read from a card that will be provided at your seat. These boundaries are not negotiable. They are necessary for our relationship to continue in any meaningful way. I hope you'll choose to be there. But I'll be okay either way. I'm not asking for your permission anymore. I'm simply letting you know what I need. With love, Naomi." I addressed the envelope but didn't seal it yet. I'd deliver it when everything else was locked down tight. The next crisis came 2 days later when my florist, a woman named Delilah who ran a small shop near the school, called in a panic. "Naomi, I don't know how to say this. Your mother called this morning. She tried to cancel your order and rebook everything under her credit card. White orchids in crystal stands. Triple your current cost." My hands tightened on the phone. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I couldn't make changes without your direct approval." She got pretty nasty. Said I was running an unprofessional operation and she'd make sure everyone knew it. "Delilah, please keep my original order exactly as is. Can you send me screenshots of what she tried to do?" "Already done. Check your email." I forwarded the screenshots to Marina with a 3-word message. "Please stop. Boundaries." Her response came immediately. "Don't threaten me. I'm trying to save you from looking cheap." I blocked her number for the rest of the day. When I unblocked it that evening, 17 missed calls and 12 text messages waited. I deleted them all without reading and went to bed early. Jude found me curled up on the couch. "She's scared," he said. "What?" "Your mom. She's terrified. She's losing control of the narrative, and control is all she has." I thought about that. Does that excuse what she's doing? No. But it explains it. He sat beside me. "You're breaking a pattern that's probably older than you. That's scary for everyone involved." I told exactly one person about the real venue. My Aunt Rosa, Marina's younger sister and the family black sheep who'd never quite fit the mold Marina demanded. Rosa had smuggled snacks into my room when Marina grounded me for getting a B in calculus. She'd driven 4 hours to watch my college choir concert when Marina said she was too busy. She'd been the one to tell me, years ago, that loving myself wasn't selfish. I called her from my car after school. "I need to tell you something, but you can't tell anyone." "Not yet." "Is everything okay?" "More than okay. The wedding isn't at the warehouse anymore. It's at the Glasshouse Conservatory." Silence. Then Rosa laughed, a bright sound that made me smile despite everything. "Oh, Naomi. Your mother is going to lose her mind. She's been trying to get photographed there for a decade." "I know. She's going to come running the second she finds out." "I know that too. But this time I'm holding the door. She can come in on my terms, or she can stay outside." Rosa's voice softened. "I'm so proud of you, honey. When did you get so strong?" "I've always been strong," I said. I just finally stopped apologizing for it. We agreed she wouldn't tell anyone, not even her husband. The venue would stay secret until the very last moment. Marina's next move came 3 days before the wedding. She texted me a screenshot of a reservation confirmation from the Hamilton Club. "Secured the space on your behalf. You're welcome. This way we can do things properly." I stared at the screen in disbelief. She'd actually made a reservation at the club, using my name, without my consent. I called the Hamilton Club immediately. The events manager sounded confused when I explained the situation. "I'm sorry, Miss Hale, but your mother said you'd authorized this. She even signed paperwork." "I absolutely did not authorize anything. Please cancel the reservation immediately and remove her access to make any future bookings under my name." After hanging up, I texted Marina. "I've canceled the Hamilton Club reservation. My wedding day is mine to plan. You are still invited if you can be kind. That's the only requirement." She left me a voicemail that I didn't listen to until hours later. Her voice was ragged, oscillating between tears and anger. "You're ruining my reputation, Naomi. People are asking questions. They think I can't even manage my own daughter's wedding. This reflects on me. Don't you understand that? Everything you do reflects on me." I saved the voicemail but didn't respond. The truth in her words was accidentally revealing. She didn't care about my happiness. She cared about her image. Always had, always would. Jude and I sat on our kitchen floor at midnight the night before we had to make the final venue decision official. The warehouse contract required confirmation. The glasshouse booking was paid but could still be cancelled with partial refund. Are we really doing this? I asked, holding my mug of chamomile tea with both hands. We already did it, Jude said. We're just making it official now. I pulled up both contracts on my laptop. For a moment, I stared at the warehouse agreement. We'd loved that space when we first saw it. The honest concrete, the string lights, the wildflowers in the courtyard. It represented the kind of simple, authentic celebration we'd always imagined. But the glasshouse represented something else. Proof that I could achieve something beautiful on my own terms. Proof that my mother's money and connections weren't the only path to places she coveted. Proof that community and kindness could open doors that status couldn't. I clicked cancel on the warehouse booking. A small sadness flickered through me. We really had loved that space. Then I opened the glasshouse confirmation and read it again, letting myself feel the full weight of what we'd accomplished. No going back now, I whispered. Jude kissed my temple. Forward is the only direction that matters. The email from Amira arrived the next morning while I was brushing my teeth. The subject line made me drop my toothbrush in the sink. Special recognition opportunity. I opened the message with shaking hands. Dear Naomi, the Glasshouse Board has a tradition of dedicating small terrace plaques to local community members who embody our values of education and service. Your name was nominated multiple times by families in your school district. If you consent, we'd like to unveil a dedication plaque the morning of your wedding ceremony. The plaque would read, The Naomi Hale Garden. Please let us know if you're comfortable with this honor. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Then I walked into the bedroom where Jude was getting dressed for work and handed him my phone without a word. He read it, looked up at me, and smiled so wide his eyes crinkled at the corners. Naomi. Your name on the glass. I burst into tears and collapsed against his chest while he held me and murmured, finally. Finally, finally, finally. I wrote back a simple yes and pressed send before I could overthink it. My name would be on the glass. Not Marina's. Mine. The girl who'd been told she thought too small would have her name permanently displayed at the venue her mother couldn't access. Marina's final public move came 2 days before the wedding. She posted on social media, her words carefully chosen to elicit maximum sympathy. Heartbroken that I cannot attend my daughter's industrial gathering. When children reject guidance and family tradition, a mother can only step back with grace. Wishing her well from a distance. The post spread quickly through her social circle. My phone filled with messages from people I barely knew. So sorry your mom can't make it. What happened? Are you okay? Some of Marina's friends commented with thinly veiled criticism. How sad when children don't value their parents' wisdom. Weddings should honor family traditions. Sometimes we have to make hard choices. I typed and deleted a dozen responses. Part of me wanted to screenshot every cruel text, every manipulative phone call, every boundary violation. I wanted to defend myself publicly. Instead, I posted a single photo. My grandmother's music stand with my veil draped across it and a sticky note from one of my students that read, You're the best teacher ever, Miss N. The caption was simple. A day for people who show up. I didn't mention Marina. I didn't have to. The people who really knew me understood exactly what I meant. I met Marina at a cafe downtown 2 days before the wedding. She arrived 15 minutes late, her hair perfect, her expression carefully composed. I'd chosen a public place deliberately. She performed better with an audience. I slid the sealed envelope across the table. Inside was the boundary letter I'd written, printed on cream cardstock, with a line at the bottom for her signature. She opened it slowly, her eyes scanning the words. I watched her face shift through several emotions. Surprise. Anger. Something that might have been hurt. An apology? Public? She set the paper down like it had burned her fingers. You want me to humiliate myself in front of everyone? I want you to tell the truth, I said quietly. A simple truth, read from the card that will be at your seat. Just acknowledge that you said something hurtful to Jude and that you regret it. That's all. Absolutely not. This is manipulation. You're trying to control me. I almost laughed at the irony but caught myself. This is a boundary. You can accept it or not. Either way, there's a seat waiting for you if you change your mind. I stood up, leaving the pen on the table beside the envelope. Marina stared up at me, her eyes bright and hard. You'll regret this, she said. When you're older, you'll understand what you've thrown away. I looked at her for a long moment, this woman who'd given me life but never quite let me live it. I already understand. That's why I'm walking away. The morning of my wedding, Aunt Rosa texted me while I was in the hotel room getting my hair done. She's not coming. Says she won't be manipulated. I stared at the message for a long moment, then set my phone face down on the vanity. The hairdresser hummed softly as she pinned my grandmother's pearl comb into the twisted sections of my updo. In the mirror, I watched my face and tried to identify what I felt. Not grief, exactly. Not quite relief. Something in between. A door closing on one version of my life while another door swung open. Are you okay, honey? The hairdresser asked, meeting my eyes in the mirror. Yeah, I said, surprised to find it was true. I really am. The makeup artist handed me a mirror so I could approve the final look. The woman staring back at me looked calm and certain. She looked like herself, finally. Not trying to shrink or expand to fit someone else's expectations. Just present in her own skin. My phone buzzed again. Jude's message was short. Whatever happens today, we're good. You and me. That's all that matters. I texted back a heart emoji and turned my phone off completely. The ceremony would happen exactly as planned, whether Marina was there or not. That decision was hers to make. The only choice I controlled was my own. The cars began arriving at the Glasshouse Conservatory at 3 in the afternoon. I watched from the bridal suite's window as guests stepped out onto the circular drive and stopped, their faces tilting up toward the glass structure that rose above them like a crystal cathedral. The gasps were audible even from where I stood. This was not a warehouse with string lights. This was not an industrial space with concrete floors. This was the crown jewel of the city, glittering in the afternoon sun, filled with rare orchids and cascading vines that had taken decades to cultivate. Then I saw her. Marina, in a navy sheath dress, her hair freshly styled, her makeup flawless. She stood on the sidewalk looking up at the conservatory with an expression I couldn't quite read from this distance. Shock, maybe. Anger. Something else underneath that might have been grudging respect. She walked quickly toward the main entrance, her heels clicking on the stone path. I watched her try the door and speak to the security guard stationed there. He radioed someone, listened to his earpiece, then gestured toward a different entrance. Through the window, I saw an usher approach Marina and hand her something. A sealed envelope. She opened it, and even from far away, I could see her body stiffen as she read my boundary letter, now printed on official conservatory stationery. The usher gestured toward the entrance, clearly explaining something. Marina looked up, and for one brief moment, our eyes met across the glass and distance. She didn't smile. Neither did I. I made my way to the staging area behind the main ceremony space. Through the gauzy curtains, I could hear the string quartet playing and guests finding their seats. Aunt Rosa appeared beside me, squeezing my hand. She's here, Rosa whispered. They offered her the microphone to read the apology card. She's holding it right now. My heart hammered against my ribs. For one impossible moment, I let myself imagine it. Marina standing at the microphone, reading the simple words I'd written. I'm sorry for the hurtful things I said. I'm here to celebrate, not to control. Just that. Nothing elaborate or humiliating. Just truth. Through the curtain gap, I could see her. She stood near the microphone stand, the card in her hand, her lips pressed into a thin white line. The coordinator waited patiently beside her. Marina raised the card. For a heartbeat, I thought she'd actually do it. Then she lowered it slowly and shook her head. Her voice carried across the quiet space, sharp and clear. I won't be humiliated like this. A murmur rippled through the assembled guests. Not glee or mockery. Just understanding. The kind of collective recognition that comes when people witness someone making a revealing choice. Aunt Rosa gently took the microphone from the coordinator's hand. The ceremony will begin now. The usher gestured toward row J, where a seat waited with Marina's name on it. She stood frozen for a long moment. No one dragged her out. No one scolded her. She simply had to decide. The ceremony happened without Marina in the front row. She made her way to row J eventually, sitting in the back with her purse clutched in her lap, her face carefully blank. I watched her settle into her seat as I stood behind the curtain with my father's sister, Aunt Teresa, who'd agreed to walk me down the aisle after my father passed away 5 years ago. You sure about this? Teresa whispered. More sure than I've been about anything, I said. The music shifted. The curtain parted. I stepped into the conservatory's main hall and felt my breath catch. Sunlight poured through the glass ceiling, casting patterns across the floor. Flowering vines climbed the walls, their blooms filling the air with subtle perfume. The front rows were filled with people I loved. Jude's grandmother dabbing her eyes. My students clustered together, grinning. Mrs. Patterson from school, who'd helped make this possible. Jude stood at the altar in his good suit, the one he'd worn exactly twice before. His eyes met mine, and his smile was so genuine it almost hurt to look at. I walked toward him steadily. Not slowly, not in the traditional measured pace. Just walking like a person moving toward the life she wanted, without hesitation. When I reached him, he took my hands. You're beautiful, he whispered. You're beautiful, I whispered back. The ceremony was simple. We'd written our own vows and kept them short. Promises to be honest. To be kind. To build a home where love mattered more than appearances. When the officiant pronounced us married, the guests stood and cheered. After the vows, the coordinator stepped forward and gestured toward a curtained section of the terrace I hadn't noticed before. We have one more surprise, she said into the microphone. She pulled back the fabric, revealing a bronze plaque mounted on the glass wall. The Naomi Hale Garden. Beneath my name, a simple inscription, for the teacher who helped children find their voices. My throat closed. Jude squeezed my hand as I stepped forward to the microphone the coordinator offered. I looked out at the assembled guests, at all these people who'd shown up not because they had to, but because they wanted to. This garden, I said, my voice shaking slightly, is for anyone who ever built a home from kindness instead of blood. For anyone who chose love over appearances. For anyone who showed up. The room erupted in applause. Then, impossibly, my students stood and began singing. They'd prepared something in secret, a simple melody with words they'd written themselves. You taught us we were worthy, you taught us we could shine. Jude's grandmother stood and kissed my forehead, leaving a lipstick print I didn't wipe away. Aunt Rosa wrapped me in a hug that smelled like her vanilla perfume and whispered, "Your mother is leaving." I turned and saw Marina standing near the side exit, small against the towering glass walls. She looked diminished somehow, no longer the commanding presence who'd shaped my entire childhood. Just a woman who'd chosen control over connection, and now faced the consequences of that choice. She didn't storm out. She didn't make a scene. She simply gathered her purse, adjusted her dress, and walked toward the door with her shoulders straight and her chin lifted. Performing dignity even in departure. I didn't chase her. Didn't call out. Didn't try to fix things one more time. Instead, I took Jude's hand and turned toward the terrace doors. The coordinator opened them wide, revealing the garden space with my name etched into the glass. Sunlight poured through the panels, warm on my face and arms. My students surged forward, chattering and laughing. Mrs. Patterson handed me a bouquet of wildflowers they'd picked that morning. "We wanted you to have something real," she said. Aunt Rosa appeared with champagne. Teresa was crying happy tears. Jude's sister was already posting photos and tagging me with heart emojis. This was my family. Not perfect, not prestigious, just present. Through the glass, I caught one last glimpse of Marina's navy dress disappearing around the corner. Part of me ached, the little girl who'd spent 28 years trying to be enough for a mother who measured love in achievements and appearances. But a larger part of me felt light. Free. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. Jude pulled me close, his voice low in my ear. "How do you feel?" I thought about it honestly. Like I finally came home. The reception spilled out onto the terrace as evening approached. The glasshouse staff lit tiny candles along the pathways. Music played from hidden speakers. People danced badly and laughed loudly, and nobody cared about looking perfect. At one point, I stood at the railing with Aunt Rosa, watching Jude teach my students a ridiculous line dance he'd learned at a work party. "Do you think she'll come around?" Rosa asked quietly. "Marina, I mean." "Eventually." I considered the question. "Maybe. But that's her choice to make, not mine. I can't keep breaking myself into smaller pieces trying to fit into her idea of acceptable." Rosa nodded. "You know what I see when I look at you tonight?" "What?" "Someone who finally stopped asking permission to take up space." Later, as the sun set and the conservatory's glass walls reflected the amber light, I found myself standing alone for a moment at the entrance to the Naomi Hale garden. I traced my fingers over the bronze letters of my name. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Against my better judgment, I pulled it out. One new message from Marina. "You got what you wanted. I hope it was worth it." I stared at the words for a long time. Then I typed my response carefully, not in anger but in clarity. "I didn't want this to hurt you. But I needed to stop hurting myself. The door is open whenever you're ready to meet me where I actually am, not where you wish I was. I love you. But I love me too now. And that has to be enough." I pressed send and turned off my phone for the rest of the night. Jude found me there a few minutes later. "Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect," I said, surprised to realize I meant it completely. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, and we stood together looking at the garden that bore my name. The garden that represented years of small kindnesses, of showing up for kids who needed someone to believe in them, of building something real instead of something impressive. "You ready to dance?" he asked. "I'm ready for everything," I said. We walked back to the terrace hand in hand. The party continued around us, full of people who'd chosen to be there, who'd celebrated our love without conditions or requirements. My students were attempting to teach Jude's grandmother the line dance. Aunt Rosa was deep in conversation with my college roommate. The florist, Delilah, had stayed for the reception and was laughing with Simone, the wedding planner. This was what I'd been searching for my entire life without knowing it. Not perfection. Not prestige. Just presence. Just people who showed up and stayed. As the night wore on, I found myself thinking about the warehouse venue we'd almost chosen. The honest concrete and wildflowers, the space that had felt like enough until something more became possible. There was no right or wrong choice, really. Both venues would have been beautiful because they would have held the same people, the same vows, the same love. But the glass house meant something extra. It proved that you didn't need the right last name or the right connections to access beauty. You just needed to spend years being kind, helping others, building community quietly without expecting recognition. The recognition came anyway, not because I'd chased it, but because I'd earned it through thousands of small moments that mattered to real people. Around midnight, as guests started to leave, Mrs. Patterson found me one more time. "Thank you for letting us be part of this," she said. "My Keisha is going to remember this day forever." She saw her teacher stand up for herself. "That matters more than you know." After she left, I thought about all the students who'd watched me struggle with my mother over the years. The ones who'd heard me make excuses for cancelled plans or seen me flinch at certain phone calls. They'd been learning from me even then, absorbing lessons about what women tolerate and accept. Tonight they'd learned something different. That you could set boundaries with love. That you could honor yourself without destroying others. That walking away from toxicity wasn't failure, it was survival. The last guests filtered out around 1 in the morning. The conservatory staff assured us they'd handle all the cleanup. Jude and I stood alone in the Naomi Hale garden one final time before leaving. "Think your mom will ever understand?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe understanding isn't the goal anymore. Maybe peace is enough." He kissed my forehead, right where his grandmother's lipstick mark had been. "You're the strongest person I know." "I'm just tired of being small," I said. "I spent 28 years making myself smaller so other people could feel bigger. I'm done." We walked out of the conservatory into the cool night air. Behind us, the glass structure glowed from within, lit up like a beacon. Somewhere in the city, Marina was probably telling her version of the story to anyone who'd listen. The daughter who'd rejected guidance. The wedding that had been a spectacle. The mother who'd been wronged. Let her tell it. Truth had a way of surfacing eventually. Our car was decorated with tin cans and streamers, courtesy of Jude's sister. We drove through empty streets toward our apartment, toward the life we were building together without permission or approval from anyone who didn't matter. "You know what's funny?" I said as we pulled up to our building. "What?" "I thought I'd feel triumphant tonight. Like I'd won something. But I just feel quiet. Settled." "That's because you're not fighting anymore," Jude said. "You're just living." We carried our wedding gifts upstairs, laughing quietly so we wouldn't wake neighbors. Inside our small apartment, we collapsed on the couch still in our wedding clothes, too tired to change but too wired to sleep. My phone, which I'd turned back on, showed 17 missed calls from unknown numbers. Marina's friends, probably, calling to tell me what a mistake I'd made. I deleted the notifications without listening to voicemails. There was one message I did read, though. From Amira at the conservatory. "Thank you for letting us host your celebration. The garden dedication will remain in place permanently. We hope you'll visit often and bring your students. They're always welcome here." I showed the message to Jude. "Want to bring field trips to the conservatory?" "I want to do everything with you," he said simply. We fell asleep on the couch as the sun started rising, still in our wedding clothes, exhausted and happy and finally free. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a new normal. Marina didn't call. Didn't text. The silence stretched out like an ocean between us, but it didn't hurt the way I'd expected. It just was. Aunt Rosa reported that Marina had told people I'd staged a spectacle to humiliate her. That the glasshouse booking had been a deliberate slight. That I'd become cruel and vindictive. "You want me to correct her?" Rosa asked during one of our weekly coffee dates. "No," I said. "People who know me will know the truth. People who don't aren't my concern." I took my students to the conservatory on a field trip 6 weeks after the wedding. They ran through the Naomi Hale garden touching flowers and reading the plaque over and over, proud that their teacher's name was on something so beautiful and permanent. "Miss N, does this mean you're famous?" one of them asked. "No," I said. "It means I showed up. That's all." I kept showing up. That night, lying in bed next to Jude in our small apartment, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The years of trying to earn my mother's approval. The slow realization that approval was never coming, not in the form I needed. The painful decision to stop shrinking myself. The discovery that standing up straight didn't make me cruel, it made me honest. Any regrets? Jude asked in the darkness. Not even one, I said, and meant it with my whole heart. My name was on the glass now. Not because I'd fought my way there or demanded recognition. But because I'd spent years being quietly kind to people who had nothing to give me in return. Because I'd showed up for students who needed someone to believe in them. Because I'd built something real instead of something impressive. And somewhere in the city, my mother was learning to live with a daughter who'd stopped asking permission to exist. The door was still open. It would always be open. But I wasn't standing there waiting anymore. I was out here, in the light, building a life that belonged entirely to me.